Now listen, we take this fact for granted, but this is huge. The fact that there is an order to nature that can be discovered. Every single one of us, when we get out of our house every morning, live as if the world is governed, is ordered, that it's not chaotic or random. We believe every day that the sun will rise, that there's an order to it, that apples will fall straight down, that radio waves will carry our voice from our cell phone to a cell tower, that the veggies that were good for us on Thursday will be good for us again tomorrow, that the tea, the water that we are making for our tea will boil at the same temperature. We believe that the universe that we live in, that the world that we live in is ordered and governed, that it has a law to it. And science can tell us about that order, but it cannot tell us why that order is there in the first place. Physicist Paul Davies says this: the underlying order in nature, the laws of physics, is simply accepted as given, as brute fact. Nobody asks where the laws come from. At least they don't in polite company. However, even the most atheistic scientist accepts as an act of faith the existence of a law-like order in nature that is at least in part comprehensible to us. So science can proceed only if the scientist adopts an essentially theological worldview. Science can only exist if you assume that there is in fact a God who has created an order and structure to the universe that we are able to decipher. Because here's the reality: if all we are, stay with me now, okay? If all we are is our brains, if all we are is biochemistry, if all we are is the random collision of atoms in our minds, then our thoughts, our discoveries, our love, our hate, our fear, our courage, our hopes, our dreams, our appreciation and awe at beauty and art, our sense of self, that we are a real person, an individual in the world, all of it is just an illusion. An illusion produced by chemistry and physics inside our skull, conditioned by a blind process. It's not real. But the fact that it's not real runs against all of our experience. We believe that we are in fact an individual with real hopes and dreams. We believe that love is real, that courage is real. We believe there's something more to this. And if there's a God, it is real. Today, I know why. I have an explanation for why there is a universe rather than an empty nothing. I know why life originated on planet Earth. I know that love is in fact real and not just a product of chemistry. I know why I am awed by beauty and why I deeply appreciate art. I know why I can unlock nature with my mind. I know why I yearn for a deeper meaning and significance in life. I know why I'm conscious of myself. I know why there is a real right and a real wrong. And it's because there is a God. There is an author behind this story. And these things do not fit if there isn't. If there is no God, we are just chemistry in a chaotic universe. God is the only explanation that fully fits yours and my human experience. But God is not only the explanation that fits our human experience, He is also the only source of a meaning that matters. One of the most universal aspects of that human experience is the quest for meaning. We all want our lives to matter. We want to believe that there's a purpose. We are always asking why. We're the only creatures that do that. I don't know that starfishes or aardvarks do it, but we do. We always walk around asking why. Why this? Why that? We're always yearning for something more. But apart from God, there is no ultimate meaning. Now listen, let's be fair. We as humans have the capacity to create our own meanings for ourselves. But the issue with creating your own meaning is it changes as you age. Not only does it change as you age, it is not necessarily shared by other human beings. It's not grounded in anything beyond ourselves. And in fact, when we die, it will be buried with us in the ground. Apart from God, there is no ultimate meaning. And that's one of the facts that if you don't believe in a God, you have to face. Bertrand Russell, the great 20th century English writer and intellectual, was not afraid to face that. He was known for his atheism, and here's what he said about meaning. That man is the product of causes which had no idea of the end they were achieving. That his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of the accidental combination of atoms. That all the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system, and that the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. Only within the scaffolding of these truths, only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair, can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. Russell is honest. He says, if there is no God, all of this is pointless. Everything that we are is simply a result of the random combination of atoms. Everything that we built will come crashing down and will ultimately be wiped clean in the history of the universe and completely forgotten. It is only from that truth, he says, can we begin to find any purpose for our lives. Only on the foundation of unyielding despair can we move forward. Well, it sounds nice in an academic sense. In a real lived sense, it's much more difficult. Leo Tolstoy, the great Russian writer, wrestled with this in his book, A Confession. At the age of 50, it came upon him in middle age, the realization that everything he loved in life would eventually be taken away from him, and that all of his writing would one day be forgotten, and it left him despairing. Tolstoy wrote, the question was, why should I live? Why wish for anything or do anything? Is there any meaning in my life that the inevitable death awaiting me does not destroy? How can we fail to see this? That is what is surprising. One can only live while one is intoxicated with life. As soon as one is sober, it is impossible not to see that it is all a mere fraud and a stupid fraud, Tolstoy wrote. Let me submit to this. Whatever your belief may be here today, whether that's belief in the Christian God, some other kind of God, or no God, you can't live like life doesn't matter. You can't go out there and live like your actions don't have significance. We all do it. People who don't, well, we put them in prisons and institutions sometimes. But if there is no God, then all of this is ultimately meaningless. And it doesn't matter whether you were Batman or the Joker, whether you were Adolf Hitler or Winston Churchill, whether you were Osama bin Laden or the firefighter from New York City who ran up the stairs in the towers on September 11th. It doesn't matter. It's all going to wash out in the end. Unless there's a God. Now listen, we like to put it out of our mind. We like to distract ourselves from the reality. And people can create their own meaning. Listen, that's why a lot of people who believe in a different concept of God or who believe in no God can be much better behaved than Christians. We can be very good at creating our own rules and our own meaning and living by those things. But will the meaning that you create for yourself, will it survive when your career comes crashing down around you? Will it survive when the doctor looks at you and says it's cancer? Will that meaning still be there when your kids cut you out of their lives? Will that meaning still be there when you go to the funeral? Now, of course, nowadays we don't really call them funerals. We call them celebrations of life. Why do we call them celebrations of life? Because when we come together in those moments, we all want to say, this life mattered. this life mattered. What this person was, who this person was, is still with us. But let me tell you something. If there is no God, then it's an illusion. No, it's not an illusion. It's a delusion. What we do when we come together at funerals and celebrations of life. It's a group fairy tale that we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better. Unless there is a God. Most people are living like He's there. In fact, it's largely impossible to live like He's not. We all live by faith. Every single one of us. We all live by faith. In the few years that we've lived, in our tiny little perspective, we have not discovered all knowledge. And so all of us are getting up every day and living by faith. The question is, do we have a faith worth having? Do we have the faith that is founded on the best reasons and produces the best outcomes? Are we putting it in all the wrong places? I believe that faith in God, and even further than that, faith in Jesus Christ, is the best faith to have. Why? Because our God is the only explanation that fits the whole of human experience. Our God is the only one that can provide us a meaning that truly matters. And my argument today is that all of us in this room, whether we believe in God or not, are living like He is there. And my invitation to you today is, instead of pushing against that, instead of living a contradiction, living like there's a God when there is no God, instead of pushing against it, try leaning into it. Try leaning into the reality that there is an author of this story, that there is a God in the heavens, and that your life matters, and that He is the explanation that satisfies, and that this is a faith worth having. Will you have doubts? Of course you'll have doubts. Why? Because we don't have all knowledge. We don't know everything. We haven't been from one end of the universe to the other. We haven't seen the deep expanses of time. So yes, we are going to have doubts. But God is ready for them. He's the only explanation that satisfies my doubts. He's the only one that lets me understand all of my human experience. And He's the reason that I and so many of you get out of bed every day like your life matters, because you know that it does, because you know that He's there.